chairman of the session and my co-speakers, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I thank the organizers for conferring the award in the morning. Now, as I stand before you, I am aware of the constraints of time. It's already about 1:45, and it's very difficult to be a speaker just before lunch, and that too when we are already running late. So pardon me for running fast. The subject which I have chosen is too vast actually, and it's very difficult to do justice to this subject in a short time. But anyway, I'll accept this challenge and try to do my best. See, we are talking about knowledge and innovation and making India a hub of knowledge and innovation. Well, my take is I have few slides to say that India was a knowledge of innovation and knowledge, and somewhere we missed it. Now we are trying to remake it probably. That's how I look at it. And I'll cover nuclear technology in India, societal impact. In fact, as I stand before you, the first thought in your mind will come that I'll talk about nuclear explosive devices, or I'll talk about nuclear energy. But really, the reality is different. Today, nuclear energy is playing a vast role which is directly impacting the society. And in the times to come, I can assure you, it is going to be a game changer as far as the food and agriculture and medicine line is concerned. So that's why I have chosen this subject, that societal impact of nuclear technology. As I understand innovation, it is translating idea or invention just for the sake of completeness into a good or service that creates value. It involves thinking differently, creative thinking, insightful. But economic prosperity of any country, it depends on development of human capital. This has been told by my previous speakers, and I'll go to the next one. Now, coming to this, as I said, India was a hub of knowledge and innovation. If you look at the ancient India and even today, the diversity in Indian society, actually it is, in my view, a fertile ground for innovations. You know, Mr. Basu will think differently from Mr. Balyan, and all of you will think differently. We are all having a unique diversity, and that is our strength today. It is the fertile ground for innovation. And you know that zero and decimal system, it was invented. It is now backbone of the IT revolution, and we are one of the three ancient civilizations. We are home to that Indus Valley great civilization and origin of several concepts of religion. And we had pioneer universities like Takshila, Nalinda, etc. I am running past an architecture engineering marvels you have seen in India, and the Vedic knowledge and traditional knowledge system of passing it to the younger generation in yoga, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, whatever it is, you know that. So that's why I believe India was a hub of knowledge and innovation. And there are several innovations like green revolution, telecom, so many things in modern India have happened. People have talked about it. And information and communication technology export, defense, pharma, biotech, and so on and so forth. We are doing well in many fields. We know that. Of course, there is a need to do much more. There are some of the pride of India, Chandrayaan, nano car, several. I will not go into this. These are all common knowledge. Even Atom for Peace, this is a success story. And we run the largest railway network. We all know that. These are the great intellectuals, intellectual heritage. I am not going into this, Aryabhatta, Kautilya, Chanakya, so many. I mean, these are all luminaries. So we were a hub of, and so many Nobel laureates of Indian origin. They are not necessarily all are Indians, but they are of Indian origin. And so we have a powerhouse of talented professionals. We know that. 570 universities, 33,000 colleges, what's second largest in higher education, and annually so many PhDs and so on and so forth. Now, this emerging global knowledge hub, India, yes, it is that we do recognize, because we provide specialized professionals to other countries. There are 27 million Indian professionals across the world, pioneer in software development, $75 billion ICT export, and Indian diaspora comprises of so many doctors in US, so many scientists, 36% in NASA, 34% of the Microsoft employees, and this. So you can yourself realize, I am going to talk so many positive things. about India, which many of this you know. So what are the innovation prospects? The key R&D drivers are abundant talent pool. We have robust R&D infrastructure supported by government. Mr. Basu said that, and it is true. Of course, the private sector also has to do more. And then research at competitive cost is available. That's why so many contract research is being given to, Bangalore is one of the hub of contract research in biomedical field and large industrial base. And we have a large youth base trained in science and technology, huge intellectual property. So I'm not going into this because of shortage of time. I'll come back to now my subject of nuclear technology in India and how it impacts the society. This is a high-end technology in service of humanity, multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. This is the strength of this. And this was all conceptualized by Dr. Bhabha. It started in 1954 under Atomic Energy Commission, formed in 1948. You know all that. And DAE follows even today. In my view, I have been there in the department for more than 38 years, some kind of a Gurukul culture of knowledge transfer. So when one fellow retires, he is leaving several behind, who have been trained by him. And we are into building institutional knowledge. This is the DAE structure. The important point is the aided institutions and others. There is a large, so you talk of mathematical science, chemistry, physics, fundamental research, everything is being done under the umbrella of DAE. And of course, there are production units, power sector, and several other basic and applied research institutes. Now, coming to the societal impact, just look at this. DAE is contributing in a big way in diverse field. Healthcare, I'll deal with this. Agriculture, food processing, water desalination and purification, hydrological studies, then direct impact on industry, then national security, environment, building human resource, and of course the energy, which I have taken the last because everyone perceives that we are into nuclear energy. So now in healthcare, just you see, this is the topmost priority. There are healthcare, nuclear technology applications in diagnostics, therapeutic, sterilization of medical products through irradiation, then production of radiation in oncology, neurology, cardiology, nephrology, whatever you talk about it, it is there. Living in India that can be sustained in the long term will only be possible on the basis of very large imports of fuel or on the basis of atomic energy. So this is long time back. It is a sustainable source. It has been calculated more than 500 years. It can very easily meet the major energy demand of India. And one important aspect I will say, it is comparatively inflation resistant. So once you have built a nuclear power plant, then the only thing is the fuel. And that fuel component in the cost is very low. So it is a relatively, inflation resistant. And that's how once you have built, unlike coal, where the prices keep on going up. And it can sustain large size, it can have compact size in various space and other applications. This is important. I'll spend a minute on this. You can compare a 1000 megawatt Hydel coal and nuclear plant. Just see that compared to Hydel plant, 2,000 to 5,000 hectares it requires, and also rehabilitation issues. The coal base 70 hectares, and it generates 4 million ton coal per year. You need it, 8 train loads of 1,400 tons per day, with 10 million tons of CO2 generation, also SOx, NOx things. Compared to that, nuclear power plant requires only 120 metric tons per year fuel, and the final waste is only 1 ton in a year. So, yeah, and only 20 hectares. This is the overall impact of the various sources of energy on the CO2 emissions gram equivalent. You see the nuclear falls at the bottom, and you can compare yourself with other sectors. And this also takes into account the emissions from the other chain steps. So not only the direct impact, but also. So this is about the cost from nuclear. It is comparable to Hydel and coal. Dr. Bhabha said there is no power as costly as no power, because if we don't have power, then everything is going to come to a grinding halt, and indirect cost will be too high for the humanity. India is pursuing, these are some perceptions versus reality, that India is only pursuing nuclear power, but world has stopped. It is not true. Suffice to say, because I can, drive home this point whenever the time permits, but the world is also going in a big way in this. So this is not true. The other thing is the nuclear waste is a problem without any solution. This is also not true. because 99.9% is recycled. The final waste is only 0.1, and there are master technologies to manage this thing. There is absolutely no issue. Then radiation causes cancer. This is another perception, but the reality is different. There are n number of studies. Of course, there are counter studies also. I am not denying that, but the truth is that this is not a source of causing cancer. The natural sources and also our lifestyle contributes to 90% of the cancers. This is a slide. I am just saying that terrestrial gamma contributes 17%. Then the natural radon inhalation 42% to the cancers, and food source 10.69, medical diagnostics 14.2, cosmic rays also 14.2. So it is the natural background radiations which are causing 95% of the cancers. Thanks for your kind attention. I'll only say from this platform that what we need today for knowledge and innovation is honesty of the purpose and belief in ourselves. If we have this, I think we can do whatever is required, and the ancient India of those times will be here again. Thank you so much.